Now, as I'm sure you've heard in the news, Labour held the seat in the Sale East and Wythenshawe by-election last night, but the Conservatives were third, the Lib Dems lost their deposit, and for the fifth time since 2010, UKIP came second in a by-election to Labour, leading to speculation that a vote for UKIP is in fact a vote for Miliband. But what impact is the party having on the women's vote? The Prime Minister has been in trouble in recent weeks for his all-male front bench in the House, but it's UKIP that's openly suggested women who take time off to have children are worth less to employers than men, and even warned small businesses off employing ladies of childbearing age. So, stand by your fridge, which I hope is clean at the back, and welcome to Woman's Hour, the party's leader, Nigel Farage.
Good morning. Nigel, what a lovely introduction, thank you.
Just let's look at the by-election first. What do you make of the suggestion that your party is actually a good thing for the Labour Party?
It's just nonsense. I mean, all the evidence and of extensive polling over the last few months shows that of the UKIP vote, a third of it comes from people who voted Conservative in 2010. Two-thirds of it doesn't. We pick up chunks of old Labour, Liberal Democrats who've given up on them are voting for us, and fascinatingly, 1 in 5 UKIP votes are non-voters, people who are re-entering the political system because they believe in what we stand for. So actually, our effect on the Conservative Party isn't arithmetical, but it is psychological, and that's because the Tory Party is so desperately split on the question of Europe and all the things that come from that.
All right, let's talk fridges, sluts.
Well, hang on.
Cleaning. No, come on. I mean, at the time that
none of that's party policy,
Godfrey Bloom made those pronouncements, which clearly had a huge impact, you said, oh, well, he was just joking. Did you find all his pronouncements funny?
No, I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? Godfrey thought he was funny, and in a certain environment, you know, perhaps the officer's mess, it might be funny, or it might have been funny years ago, and it now looks to be a type of humour that's very out of date and not relevant. And I think, people did take offence at it.
So what do you think women's role in life should be?
I find it odd that living in a modern Britain where we're all supposed to have equal opportunities and equal chances that one even has to answer that question. I mean, there is no doubt, even in my lifetime, and I'm not quite yet 50, that, take the workplace for argument's sake, that women did face quite serious discrimination because so many of the professions were effectively a closed shop, a boys' club. And when I worked in the City of London in the 1980s, that's exactly what it was like. And for women to break through in that world, they had to be really, really tough and put up with far more abuse along the way than a man would have to. I think we've made huge progress since that time, and I think that I sense there is much less discrimination in the city and activities like that. The real question is, I think, take politics that I'm now in. Huge debate here. Is positive discrimination the way forward? And this is something that the Labour Party have adopted and the Conservative Party have adopted. Or do we just say, look, we don't care actually whether people are black or white, male or female, we let them get on according to their ability. And that's the view that we've taken in UKIP. And that debate is going to be at the forefront of the national debate for years to come, because we've got European rules on the percentage of women that have to be in the boardroom. So we're moving down the road of positive discrimination to try and create a fairer society, but I'm not sure it works.
Now, Suzanne Evans, a UKIP councillor, described UKIP as, she said, a breath of fresh air for women, believing that women don't need special quotas, rights or treatment. Isn't that sort of classic Thatcherite conservatism?
Well, I mean, Thatcherite conservatism, and it had its faults, but one of its really great markers was that it believed in meritocracy, and not just on the issue of sex, but on the issue of class. Interestingly, people of working class origin did very well under Thatcherism, and here we are 25 years later, and the class divides have reopened again, and the 7% that went to public school now dominate, both male and female, incidentally, nearly every aspect of our lives. Suzanne Evans' comments, are interesting. UKIP, in the early days, was very male-dominated.
And it still is. Come on.
Well, let's just hear me through. Was very male dominated, and also amongst the voters, far more men voted for us than women. We saw a change in that begin to happen last year. I think the reason was that the 3 big by-election advances that we made, one was Corby, one was Rotherham, the other was Eastleigh, all female candidates. And we've just completed our selections for the European elections, and the women have done amazingly well. In fact, there are some saying that women are about to take UKIP over, and so from May the 22nd this year, post the European elections, there are going to be, amongst our top line people, as many women as men, and that's not happened with positive discrimination. It's happened because our members have judged they're the right people.
But you see, you're talking the talk now, but what did you mean when you said women are worth less to city employers because they make different choices for biological reasons? Clearly you meant having children.
Yes.
So should a woman with a child not go out to work?
No. I'm not suggesting that for a moment. I was talking to a breakfast meeting of city brokers and dealers. Right. So
you were talking there
to a very, very narrow section of society. It's a job, Jenny, that I did for 20 years. I never took a fortnight's holiday in 20 years. 2 weeks away from my clients and from that desk was too long.
Is that a good way to work?
I didn't say it's a good way to work, but it's a fact of life that if you work in those big hothouse dealing rooms, you have to be there with the customers. If a man takes a sabbatical or a woman takes time off to have a baby and you come back, you are seriously disadvantaged in that world. Now look, if a woman is a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, then having time off to have children makes absolutely no difference to her career advancement at all. So I was trying to give a very honest answer to a very narrow segment of society. The trouble with politics these days is that if you say something like that, you get vilified for it because it's taken to mean that you're extending that to all women in the workplace. But as far as that world's concerned, and you may be right, it probably isn't a very nice job to do. As far as that world's concerned, I think what I said was right.
So what would your party's policy be on issues like parental leave, statutory maternity pay?
Well, we're very keen to look at how we can have proper transferable tax allowances so that people can make choices. And it's not actually just women now that stay at home to bring up children. There are 1 million men who now stay at home. And I had one of my employees who resigned when I was running a company say, Nigel, I'm going to stay at home. My wife's going to go out to work. So there are some big changes taking place within society in terms of childcare. We would like to see a transferable tax allowance. The big thorny issue that we've got to deal with party policy is what do we do for Britain's 4.5 million small businesses, run by men and women, many of them on borrowed money from the bank or on their life savings, and for them, maternity leave is a very real issue. Now, in Scandinavia, all the costs of that are covered by the government, but in this country, the employer actually has to bear a fair burden of that, and that is something that we've got to talk about and debate honestly. Because on the one hand, we want women to have every opportunity to go into the workplace, but on the other, we have to allow our small businesses to survive.
How do you deal with somebody like Bloom, again saying, a small businessman with a brain would not employ a woman of childbearing age? That is
Godfrey's
a former member of your party saying that out loud.
The point Godfrey was making, had he expressed it differently, was a very powerful point. What he was saying was that legislation that was put in place to protect women in the workplace was actually now acting, in a sense, discriminating against them getting jobs in the first instance. And it's very interesting that Bloom's comments, not his wording, but Bloom's comments have now been supported by Alan Sugar, India Knight, who hardly is somebody that hasn't advanced the cause of women in society. A lot of people actually now agree that the essence of what he said was right, but the way that he expressed it perhaps upset people.
And another of your UKIP MEPs, Stuart Wheeler, let's go back to the question of boards, because often, what's said by party members
I know. I have to live with it every day.
And here are you now, paddling like mad, saying, no, it wasn't really like that. But what did Stuart Wheeler mean when he said, we shouldn't worry about women on boards because women come nowhere at chess, bridge or poker?
Yeah, I know. There you are. What Stuart is saying.
These are members of your party.
I could find you plenty of members in my local Labour club who would say this, or the Tory Association down the road. We just are having open season at the moment on anybody in UKIP that says anything. I will repeat the point that the women are slowly but surely taking over UKIP. They're going to dominate the election coverage in the run-up to the European elections in May. We believe in a meritocracy. We think that positive discrimination is demeaning. But if people say things, what am I supposed to do? People do say things in all political parties that cause offence.
OK, so was the former UKIP MEP Marta Andreasen telling lies or misrepresented when she said Nigel Farage doesn't like women. He thinks they should be in the bedroom or the kitchen.
Well, I think what's really interesting is she made that comment designed to her, and you're the first person to mention it to me for 9 months. Nobody has taken that seriously, because they all know it's simply not to be true. Nobody has done more to promote women in UKIP than I've done, not through positive discrimination.
Why did she say it then?
Because when people get kicked out by political parties, they tend to be very bitter and very upset and say all sorts of things. But she got it wrong, and that's why it's never stuck, and that's why nobody ever mentions it.
So you don't think women should only be in the bedroom or the kitchen?
Well, I'm not even going to dignify her comment by responding.
But what are you going to do then about the image of your party if you want to persuade more women to vote for you? Because the image ain't good.
Did you watch Question Time last night?
Do you know, I felt so ill I went to bed early, and just rarely I missed it.
You're sitting there with the cough mixture and
sitting
feeling
here with
miserable.
my cough mixture, my cough sweets.
Well, last night we had a lady called Janice Atkinson appeared for us. Diane James, who stood for us in the Eastleigh by-election last year, has been on Question Time 3 times. We had a woman called Jane Collins in Yorkshire, who did so well for us in the Rotherham by-election, who's establishing herself in the media in the north as a figure. And when you get the results from the European elections, which will come out on Sunday the 25th of May, you'll be astonished to see as many women as men in the top slots in UKIP. Things have changed.
Your big campaign this week has been saying that foreign aid should go to flood victims at home.
Yeah.
How well do you suppose that's playing with the electorate?
I should think it's playing better with women than it is with men, because I think women actually do tend to be people that think very much about the family and about budgets, and men tend to be rather more irresponsible on these issues in many households. And I think we're right. I mean, we're giving £1 billion a month in effectively charity overseas, and just occasionally, when there is a disaster at home, it's time to put our own people first. And that, I think, to most people, is just good common sense.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much for being with us.